Hello, welcome everyone. The topic of our presentation is the use of Cinema 4D in a short film production. My name is Mareike. I am a producer. I'm collaborating on short films and I work for a range of companies and for all kinds of projects like animation, VFX, commercials. Each project has their unique challenges and opportunities. As a producer, I'm responsible for the budget, the timing, and the organization, as I was for Daily Tales. Later, I pass on to Alex for his and Johnny's introduction. Johnny unfortunately cannot be here today, but he is a really, really important team member. Alex and Johnny are working since 2009 as a director-artist team, and in 2014 we three have joined forces. First of all, we want to thank Maxon for inviting us to talk about our work here. They have been supporting us during our 3-year production and are still supporting us to showcase our work. The next 40 minutes we will talk about where we met, where we come from, and how we teamed up. And then we will talk about our latest work done in Cinema 4D. Alex will dive into a technical part of rigging, animation, and modeling. And maybe he will show you some tips and tricks on how to solve some problems. For the audience in the room, we will show the film after the presentation.
So, how did we meet? Like this, we met in school. Johannes and I started studying together. Mareike came on board later. And we did the first 2 movies together, mainly because we had basically blueprint of the same taste in movies, in images, in music. And then coincidentally, we also used the same software, which felt like a match made in heaven. We both like beer. So yeah, we teamed up and used cinema from the get-go and started to always, if we do a project, do something a little bit different with it. So that was a cut down of the first 2 movies, which were stylized 3D with a little bit of paint over and a stop motion set with 3D characters put in it. And so after those were done, our diploma movie came near, and that's actually when you came on board as well. Because the 3 of us joined forces. So we're going to show our diploma movie, no worries, it's not really long. And we tried, I'd call it maybe stylized realism with that, which was a first for us. Don't overdo it. I'm going to be rude now and talk over our own credits. That's also a feature of the most student movies. The credits are as long as the movies. But yeah, we tried our hands on stylized realism, and we swore to ourselves after the movie was done, we're never going to make a movie again. That was so long and it took forever. We learned a lot, but it was also a lot of pain. And after we were done, you got really busy, and Johannes and you sent it to a lot of festivals, and the movies made the rounds, and we got sort of like funding points that you can turn into new budget for the next movie. And after a while, you knocked at our Skype windows again and said, "Hey guys, we actually accomplished some of those points. Do you maybe want to make a movie again?" And by that time, the pain was long forgotten. So we were dumb enough to say yes again.
Yeah, yeah. It was some time after we met at the Film Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we thought we team up again and
do the same stuff again.
But actually, I first wanted to talk a little bit about what the producer does. Because at the Animation Institute, we team up as director-producer teams. The director is responsible for the visuals and the creative part, the story. And what does the producer do? As an example, has anyone here ever moved?
I just did.
Did you have help from your family and friends?
Oh.
You know the chaos that happens when boxes end up in the wrong rooms and you have to look for everything.
Yes.
Maybe your kitchenware is in Dietrich and your files are in the kitchen, and then you look for your cookbook and you can't find it. And then you realize, oh, maybe they have been left in the old flat because the boxes were so heavy that no one wanted to lift them. And then you wished there would have been a person who oversee everything and guide you. That's exactly what a producer does. The role may not seem so simple at first, but at the latest, you are happy that such a person is there. That's my part for the film. I make sure that all the parts get together and the finished film goes to the screen. And by the way, that's Alex moving without any producer.
But I'm still alive.
That was last week?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's where our diploma movie left us. Up top is Mareike, who went to all different sorts of places as a freelance producer. Johnny went to Tübingen to work at Bertiger Wolf, and I went to the VV Ludwigsburg, which is like 10 meters away from the university. And I can show you a little bit of what Johannes and me have been doing in the years in between. We can't show any of your work because you're always on NDA. And whenever we ask you, "Hey, Mareike, what are you up to?" you say, like, "I can tell you in 1.5 years when the project is over." Yeah, and we thought of how are we going to one-up all the other talks at FMX? And we figured we're just going to show 2 show reels at once, which is even better. So yeah, to the left is what BTW does, and to the right is what Woodblock does. So that's not all Johnny's and my work. That's our company's work. And Johannes is basically the 3D part of the whole company at Tübingen. So he does everything from 3D modeling to motion graphics to compositing to rendering. And at Woodblock, I work as an art director and designer and animator. And we both sort of stayed in contact and showed ourselves what kind of projects we do, and we were also all the time jealous of what the other person is doing and thought like, I want to do stuff like this as well. I want to do stuff like you do as well. And we sort of stayed in contact, and over all that time, we sort of also feedbacked our work at the same time. And yeah, but it's still like the urge came up again to do something together again that we can critique ourselves on all the time. Yeah, so that's when the heart you've seen before, the three pieces, came together.
Yeah, we planned Daily Tales to be our We Stay in Touch After Graduation project.
Yeah, like a big hug.
The plan was to meet in real life and to have kind of like a band jam on site. I think we had a couple of weekends like that.
Yeah, maybe 3.
Yeah. But we had a small budget and a great story from Alex. And this is a hands-up game again. Okay, guys? You ready?
Yes.
Who has ever been on a train ride? Who has ever had problems with delays?
Yes.
Who has ever been really, really disturbed by other passengers?
Yes.
This has happened to the 3 of us many times. We lived close to Stuttgart in the beginning of the project, and if you want to go anywhere, either you're stuck in the traffic or you're stuck on the train. And I guess everyone who arrived at the main station knows what we are talking about. And we thought there should be a movie about it. So have a little sneak peek of the first scene where our main character is waiting at the station. We started in summer 2019, and it was a wonderful sunny weekend. We met at the studio, and we had a day's work. When we finished, we sat in the sun, enjoyed a good chat, and we thought, okay, in a couple of weeks we meet again. And we did, until 2020. When COVID hit, we also had to shift to online collaboration. Our 1-year production timing then suddenly switched into 3 years. Yes, with animation, we are able to work from home anyways, as we do not have to go on a set and meet any actors or shoot there. Our stage is in the monitor screen, in Cinema 4D. That's where Johnny and Alex do their magic. For us, the difficult part was the restrictions that came with the pandemic, like curfew, childcare closing down, us working at nights, after work, after our day jobs, and at weekends. And that could be really exhausting at times. But yeah, the project progressed slowly. With each online session, the parts more and more formed into a movie. And yeah, here I hand over to you for the makeup.
For the hands-on part, kind of. But yeah, we started, like, now we take a step back, pre-corona, kind of, with designing everything and thinking about what we did before. And like I mentioned, we did that stop motion set and put 3D characters in it. And we thought like something like that would be really fun to like like that was the plan. We meet each other and we have sort of like a small knitting round. We sit there like grandmas and we build stuff, and it's gonna be all cozy and warm. Mareike actually like already researched all the materials she has to buy for us to like, so the three of us can build stuff. We started sketching the character and the train because we knew the story by then. So those are the 2D designs I did. And those are some of the already 3D designs Johannes did. And this is one Johannes' son did, and he also did the car. So those are, like, some of those are real, some of those are already 3D, because that was sort of like when Corona hit and we knew, oh shit, we can't do this all in real life and we can't really build it, because then there was the curfew, we couldn't like visit each other all the time, and we decided like to make the whole thing in full CG, which brought some painful diploma memories back, but also was sort of like a nice challenge because it still was combining all of the aspects we learned before. We wanted to have that stop motion feel. We now knew it was supposed to look semi-realistic, and we wanted to do those 2D effects that you saw on the fisherman, maybe, on top of all that when the little girl gets angry. So yeah, it was a nice combination of everything we did before. And so we took the story that we wrote down and turned it into little thumbnails. I think most of you probably know the process. We created an animatic, and this is just one of the scenes of the movie in the very earliest stage and then in the very last stage. Of course, we were visiting ourselves quite frequently in the beginning and got lots of inspiration for train rides. And like this animatic was super rough because like both of Johannes and me, we really like to dig into the 3D scenes and do the actual work and all that story aspect and like, how does she look there? How does she look there? It's a little bit annoying for us. We know it's really important because the story is the most important part, but we always do the same mistake again to just jump right into 3D. But one thing that really stuck are the wild expressions of the little girl, and I'm really happy that we over-exaggerated everything right at the beginning. So whenever you have a process like this, I encourage everyone to be really extreme as long as you have the liberty to just do it quickly 2D. Because when you move to 3D, you have all those technical limitations. And I think there's a tendency for everything to get a little bit tamer. Like not as vibrant, maybe a little bit smaller mouth because like you have some polygon stretching and stuff like that. And if you're still in 2D, you don't have to worry about that. You just draw one eyebrow instead of two, or just the head is bigger than the mouth. And actually a lot of that really ugly storyboard informed a lot of the animation decisions we made later on. So after the animatic was done, I started modeling the character, and this is where I actually gonna try to break my computer and open up Cinema 4D. Old grumpy man puts his Wacom tablet into the USB slot. Let's see if this works. If not, this is gonna be a presentation on how to get your Wacom tablet running on your machine, which is, I think, also really helpful for a lot of people, probably. But it seems to work. So I started to model the characters, and Johannes already started to model the train and the train station and all the other things that were surrounding the characters, kind of. Let me see if this works. I can move here, and I can move here. Yes, magic. So I brought with me this little birdie, which we're going to look at later. I brought with me the train that you can see here. This is actually the scene that you saw in the animatic. I don't know if it's going to play back now, which it seems like it's not. And when we started, actually, one of the goal we set for ourselves was both of us want to learn something new, because I think you have to have a goal. If you do stuff in your free time, right, it either has to be fun or you have to get rich and famous. By that time, we already knew that's not going to happen. At Woodblock, I also use Maya a lot and other programs a lot, and Johannes exclusively works with Cinema 4D in 3D. So I thought, I'm going to learn a lot from him. And one really nice little hack that he uses all the time here in the train, for example, is to generate that thickness of the cardboard. Don't know if you can see it. Maybe. I think my input devices. Oh no, graphics tablet is set. Maybe it's because of the external monitor, my navigation is a little bit screwed. But what we did is, I don't know if all of you know that trick already. If you want to create thickness, maybe I'm not using my graphic tablet today. Because you don't want to take old school way, extrude all the polygons and then decide, we want the train to look different. Now I have to kill all my extruded polygons. And the way you used to do that in Cinema 4D was that cloth NURBS, which always felt a little bit hacky because it's like here you have a thickness slider that you can crank all the way up if you want to. I always felt really sneaky about that. And when I was preparing the presentation, I opened up the new version of Cinema and I saw the thicken deformer, which is really nice. Congratulations to the Maxon team for implementing that. So, but that's actually one of the things that Johannes always looks out for, because he's also he's not just modeling that stuff, he's also texturing and rendering it. He also thinks about what makes it look nice when we start to render that whole thing. And that's why you see that all the stuff lying around in that scene has thickness that before that trick with the cloth NURBS was really hard to do. Maybe I can do that. But now it's really easy. Another really handy trick I'd like to use before you implemented the new symmetry tools, I think, back in the days, because either you were, if you wanted to model something symmetrically in Cinema 4D, you were either deleting one half of the object and then throwing everything into a symmetry object, which was sort of mirroring over the one half to the other, which was kind of a little bit painful for you if you already did one half and the other has a slight variation of it, and then you want to change the symmetrical part of it. And I always instead of moving this point in, I selected the one on the other hand as well and scaled it in, so it's sort of a symmetric moving operation. And then you guys implemented the sculpting features, which have some really, really nice brushes to move stuff around. And since our project was so kind of wonky in a way, so we didn't have to have precise this point has to be at that coordinate system value and whatever. So actually we took a lot of those sculpting brushes that you can use, and because those have I don't see the full menu here, but you see it, right? Yeah, because I don't see the sideline of that. Let me know if I if something gets lost in translation. And here you have in ZBrush or your typical sculpting tool, you have still those push and pull operations, but the tool itself has the ability to be mirrored. Oops. I cannot move it over. But anyways, so you can turn on symmetry while sculpting. Oh! fancy. So you changed even more. Yeah, back when we were doing the movie, you know, I'm turning into old man mode now. So yeah, that's actually what I'm talking about. You changed a lot lately. Actually, when we started the movie, everything was gray and orange still. Do you remember those times before you revamped the UI? Yes. So yeah, I encourage everyone, if you don't have a supervisor, which is also really nice, if you like do a project on the side privately, you don't have a boss that's going to tell you, this doesn't look right. You can decide by yourself, right? So a lot of that stuff in the movie we were pretty run and gunning in that sense. If it looks right, it is right. It doesn't have to be technically perfect. So yeah, that's how I created little Greta, which you can see. This is basically her head. Slow progression from the sphere you've seen before to now this. This is her head. And now we are slowly moving into rigging because the modeling process was actually pretty straightforward. And I also did the rig, which was really nice because same for Johannes doing the modeling and the rendering. You already know what's coming next in terms of departments. And you can cheat your way around stuff a little bit. So whenever I saw, oh no, the modeling department fucked something up, I could just go back and tweak it later on. But something I was really proud of was that eye sliding around the head surface. Because actually, when I started it, I was trying to do it with a constraint that has a surface mode enabled, but it was really imprecise in terms of values if you want to animate it later on. And the way it might be like super hacky and super weird, but I think it exemplifies what I like about Cinema 4D, that it basically, like if a button looks like it's gonna do something, it's most likely gonna do exactly that. And you can just like take everything, throw it together, and it somehow magically works. Whenever I have to do something in Maya at work, and I just think, I'm gonna do this, it's either not gonna do it, or it's gonna completely break everything we've done before. And all the other departments are like, Alex, what did you do again? So what I wanted to show you is how we did, like, for example, this is the leg of Greta. This is like the little wire that's bent. Let's pretend that's her leg. And the way we rigged that in the very first iteration of the rig was, there is a spline IK. I don't know if all of you know that, or at least the people who use Cinema 4D in that room. It's a handy little way to have multiple joint chains that get distributed over a spline. But we didn't like want to have a geo that you like classically weight to the joints of a rig. We just wanted the spline that we can extrude because it's basically a perfect wire already. So we sort of took that spline IK that you can use, and just did not use the joints. And then I'm just gonna scale this down so I can see everything as well. Is that super tiny for you now? Oh no, it's still fine. So in here, you typically have that joint chain down here now, and you'd link that in there. But we didn't need that. You just take this as the joint chain. The null object is basically not really important. It's just there for something to have that tag. And then you use that spline as the spline that was supposed to have all the joints aligned to it. And then you can create all the handles that you typically also use for your leg. In that instance, we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. So I'm going to add 5 points. I'm going to add a lot more and then delete all the other because I'm lazy. So now I see nothing is happening anymore, so I created too many, and I'm just going to remove all the too manys I did before. And now it created all those null objects here. Which I'm gonna turn on. Now you can see them. So those are sort of like, if I move one of those now, the spline is gonna follow it. And that's what I meant. It's like, it's my cheaty way to be able to manipulate a spline with null objects. So this goes to the trash. Because that's not doing anything. And this is basically now my hierarchy. I take those three are my foot. So this and this can be parented under here. This is my foot. I'm not going to name all of that because I think you know how to name stuff. This is my knee. This is the hip. But if you do a movie, you should always name everything correctly, right, Mr. Producer? Because then the boxes get mixed up and then you don't find stuff. Never happened to me, but I heard about people who that happened to. And now you can just like use this null object hierarchy for your typical IK setup. So you define the foot as the end. You create a goal. You create a pole vector. And see, Cinema handily names them for me. And I can move that pole out. What I like for IK setups is if here in the display settings, I change that to joint, because I think that looks like a nicer representation of that whole thing. And now I can sort of like move that foot. And then if I'm being super fancy, I can go back into the trash here and add a, I know where you are, and another tag that's the lazy person's programming. Ta-da, espresso. Do you know Lego Mindstorms still? Yes, one person is nodding. I'm not that old. It was for kids. It was a really cool way to learn programming by like plugging nodes into different nodes, and it's a really nice graphical way of showing you the logic behind programming. And now I can like take this goal object here. Oh no, wait, what? We're not gonna need this now. We're gonna need that later. I'm just gonna use like the way easier solution for this one and just use a constraint. Constraint for that, and transform, and take my goal here. So now if I just like move this around and rotate this around, my foot is doing exactly what I want. But what I need the espresso tag for is if, for example, I want my leg to be bendy a little bit, because like you've seen, the wire is not like perfectly sharp. It has like those little soft bendy things. And if you have that spline here, that spline IK tag has a depth value for all of those points that you have on that spline. In this case, I think it's the index number 1, which has like this depth value, and that's sort of changing the tangents of the spline. So our leg actually looked a little bit more like something like this maybe. And what I did then was, because if I now want to scale that value, because we want it to be pretty cartoony in our animation. So we, like you would if you stop motion animated, like sometimes the bend is a little bit sharper, sometimes it's a little bit softer. So we wanted to be able to control that. And we didn't always want to go into that tag and like select that value and then change this. We wanted to have a controller here that you can click and then scale up and down. And that's going to control the other value. And we did that by, I'm just going to use something random, like a star. Stars aren't random, Alex. Put this under here so it's moving with the knee. If I move like the foot Now that's just parented underneath there, but it's not doing anything right now. But if I click this now and I want to scale it, my little star, come here. Nothing happens, right? So what we did is we used our stupid person's way of programming, threw this in and like took it. You can also like use this for constraints and everything. It's just more complex, and I think it's also a little bit heavier to calculate because you have all the options in it. So always use constraints if you can, but if the constraint doesn't give you what you need, you can also fiddle around your way here. So we took the scale of that object, and then you can throw in your spline IK here and see in all the points are sorted there, and it has a different like the depth value that I showed you before. And I think this is the second one. This is where not even naming helps you because it doesn't have the names on there. But fortunately, our little character didn't have too many points on her legs. So, and then you can add a math node, which lets you add or subdivide or multiply, whatever you want. In our case, we want to multiply. The scale is sort of the multiplying factor because I want to have a base value that I'm going to enter here now. And then whenever I scale this past 1, it's going to multiply that with that value. And if it's on 1, it's sort of like the default value. So I can go in here, copy that value, like 67, put it in here, 67. And then, if I didn't forget about anything, if I scale this, magic! I created life. Yes, and basically, that's how you enable yourself to manipulate a spline with null objects, which happens on Greta a lot. So if you do that for all the limbs and all this stuff, you end up with something like this. And for this character, because like I said, I also wanted to learn something, we actually redid the rig another time and did it with the character components system that Cinema has now, which is really nice. But still, I think if you just like, it doesn't even have to be for a character. What I showed you before, the eye, like this one, is the same system. And I just added all those splines here to follow the curve. And then those null objects here have a really simple follow the spline tag. And this value is sort of like, right now that's locked, because whenever I move this controller over, wait, let me lock that. Whenever I move this controller, that value is just going to change. Oh, sorry, I locked it on the wrong thing. So when I move this now, like that value is going to change. And we did that with the same node system. It's like a little Houdini inside of Cinema. Ha! And then we took those null objects to drive that IK spline, and that's actually going to like deform that spline here. So those are sort of like the knee, the foot, the hip of the foot. And that's why this spline is moving along her face. And then this one also has a line to spline value here, which no, it's still locked. This one, so this is, so and now if I move it up, actually the eye is just on that deformed spline going up and down. So that's what I really like about that modular way of Cinema of working. And this one is for me to then, if I want to offset the eye from the head, because we didn't always want it to be perfectly there, you can also like change all the aspects. And those are just classical parented onto another. Beep, beep, beep. And now I just wanted to show you real quick, I think before we run out of time, something that we did for animation, which is really nice. It's a little plugin. I don't know how many of you, because I hear a lot, yeah, cinema, but it's not so nice for animating. There's a really nice extension which you can get on. Oh no, it's not there anymore. Damn it. Yesterday I installed it and now it's gone. So you have to trust me on this one now. But there is a, do any of you guys know the tween machine from Maya? It's if you have one keyframe at, for example, frame 0 and one keyframe at frame 5, it lets you interpolate between those keyframes. And you can do that for all the animation handles that you have on an object. That's really a shame. Why is it gone? But anyways, so whenever you have to do complex computer animation, look for a plugin for cinema on Gumroad. It's called Anim Tools, and that really helps you a lot with that. So that was sort of my part of the movie, the rigging and the animation. And then came rendering. And Johannes wanted to learn Redshift. Now I'm going to put my mask on. So I'm going to pretend to be Johannes, who pretends to be Alex. No, but my friends gave me that mask and I had to put it on. It was sort of like a bet that I lost. So he said, okay, let's make a movie, but let's just not make the same stuff we do at work. And he uses Octane, which he really likes. But he told me it's really simple to get something really beautiful, really quick. But it's really hard to define the very last aspect of your render. And Redshift has a little bit more of a learning curve, but it's way easier to tweak every last aspect of your render. So we use Redshift to render that. And for me, the takeaway from that was that it's really amazing how fast it renders. And you can just, instead of your classical play blast, which is on the top left, which is what I see in the viewport, you can also have really, really quick renders that don't take that much longer, actually. And you can see shadows and reflections, really basic, but it still gives you an idea of your character is off screen and it's casting a horrible shadow on the bench or something. And then just for good measure, I put in his clean render pass, and that's when he comped it. But yeah, I strongly advise you to also check your animation in a really simple rendering every once in a while. And that's what he did in compositing. He always tells us, yeah, don't do much in compositing, right? I add glow and a little bit of color correction. And I think it's a lie. I think actually he does something in compositing. This is a little bit of cheating because I didn't find the exact render. Like you see here, there's an intersection that's been fixed. But I think most of it actually is really the same frame. The only advice I can give you, but I'm not a comper, is to look up photo retouching videos on YouTube and then do exactly the reverse, because they paint out all the dust, they paint out all the hair, they remove chromatic aberration, they try to reduce the noise. And Johannes does all the opposite in reverse order. So he adds noise, he does chromatic aberration, he adds a vignette at the end, and then he does a lot of nice little tweaks that he never will tell us. But and then he also added some real grain from film footage that I think also helps a lot to make it more organic. You can see it a little bit on this dot he added in compositing. Yeah.
Yeah, last week the film had its world premiere at 2 film festivals, Dresden and Karlsruhe, and now it's in the festival run. So for the online audience, we cannot show the film today, but most likely the film will be out by the end of the year and then viewable on the Maxon channels. So just hang in there a little longer. We come to the end of our presentation. Thank you to the online audience.